Hey everybody, in this video we are taking the book Sprint from the guys at Google Ventures, breaking it down into 7 easy steps so that you can do just like it says in the subtitle, solve big problems and test new ideas in just 5 days. Coming right up. And as we go along, if you have questions, be sure to put those down in the comments because I'm going to be interviewing one of the authors for my podcast and I want to bring your questions to that discussion. So let me know if you have any questions. And speaking of comments, a big shout out to this guy for being first to comment on my last video. Now, step number 1 to running a design sprint is to figure out things in terms of a map and a target. You want to map out the problem, map out the customer experience. And this doesn't necessarily mean a literal customer. Your customer is whoever you're trying to provide value to. Your customer could be your coworkers if you're building some sort of internal system for your company. It could be anyone, but the person who is at the end, the person who you're trying to provide value to. Figure out their experience of something. So if they're going to a website, let's say, you want to look at all the different paths that they might come to the website. Maybe first they go into your store and they learn about your product, then they want to go follow up with it later. Maybe they find it through an article, a link on someone's social media. They could come to this a number of ways. So map out their journey, and then you want to target a point within that journey that's going to be the spot where you're going to work on finding a problem. You want to find that target. This map needs to have a beginning, a middle, and an end. And as you're going through this, you're going to generate something called how might we questions. So when you see a sticking point, instead of saying, oh, this thing is a problem, jot it in the form of a question. Say, how might we get the customer to look at the website? How might we make it familiar to them? How might we come up with something to show the difference between these different types of products since they look the same, but they have different features? How might we questions are going to be the thing that's going to guide you to build this map and then find that targeted place in the map. Step number 2 is to sketch. And there are actually 4 parts to your sketching. So you've got your problem, you've gone through the mapping and targeting, you've figured out what thing are we going to work on, what problem are we trying to solve in this design sprint. And now you want to sketch out some solutions. So first with that, you're going to take 20 minutes to just jot down some notes. Go back through the things that you've been talking about, look for notes, look for things that are going to be relevant to the issue. Then you're going to take 20 minutes to jot down ideas. So now you've taken the notes and then you're, how do I work that into this problem? How do I make something of this? Where am I going with this? So you jot down some ideas. Then you're going to take 8 minutes to do something called crazy eights. So you're going to fold a piece of paper in half and then in fourths and then in eighths. And in those 8 different slots, in 8 minutes, you're going to jot out 8 different things that could be your solution. Then from there, you pick one. You take the big one that you really want to run with, and then you give yourself 30 minutes to actually sketch. This is the final product. This is the 4th step of this sketching product. You're going to take that thing, really sketch it out, and come up with something that's pretty clear. You're going to put in notes, you're going to put in words, you're going to actually make something of it that you can run with. Step number 3 is to decide which sketch to take further, which sketch to build into something that you're going to use. So you're going to do this with a group. You've got a team of maybe 7 people and everybody's gone through this process together. So we've all built the map together, then we've separately sketched out our different solutions. Now we want to go through them and pick one. And the way that people would normally do this is they'd get together and they'd go, okay, let's talk about a solution and then let's critique it and say, oh, I don't like this thing. Oh, I want to change that thing. And then someone else would present another solution, say, well, my solution does this and I like it. And then people would critique that one. And this can go on for hours. The system that they suggest in the book that's worked in more than 100 design sprints for these guys at Google Ventures is instead to put up all the solutions at once, critique all the solutions at once, and then go through a very simple decision process where everybody just has stickers and you're just putting your stickers on the different solutions that you like best because you drew these out. They're all sketched, so it's very visual and you can quickly see where the decision is weighted towards by these stickers that you're putting on the preferred decisions. Eventually you have a decider, someone who's probably the head of product or the CEO or someone who is really going to be taking the lead and the responsibility on this project. And they're going to look at where these stickers are spread out and make the final decision about which sketch to build into a prototype. Step number 5 is the fun part. Now you're actually going to make a prototype. And there are some things to keep in mind. There's a prototype mindset that the guys talk about on page 168 of the book, where they say this is the way that you want to actually approach a prototype. And there are 4 keys to that prototype mindset. The first is that you can prototype anything. You can prototype a new product, even if you can't build out the whole product. Maybe it's something tremendous, but you can make a brochure for selling the product. So you can prototype it through that. You can give the customer that prototype in a brochure format to actually work with and look through and then make decisions about the product, or then bring up questions that you won't have thought of in your own process but are very important to a customer. So it's going to be a learning experience. The second thing to this prototype mindset is that the prototype has to be disposable. If you actually build out something so big that you're so attached to it that you couldn't do away with it, then it's not a prototype really. It's not something that's going to be rapidly part of a learning experience. You're not going to be comfortable with it if it should fail and you need to move on and do something else. You're going to get more attached to it. So it can't be something that you have to keep forever. It has to be disposable. The prototype has to give you enough to learn. It just has to be enough to get a sense of where the customer interacts with it, how the customer interacts with it, what the customer thinks about it, and it doesn't have to be anything more than that, just enough to learn from. And finally, the fourth thing with this prototype mindset is that the prototype has to appear real. It has to look real on the outside or look real in the images. But this can be a website that isn't actually functioning on the internet. This can be a website that's done in a PowerPoint or Keynote presentation that's really just slides that you're clicking through, not something that's actually even hosted on the internet. But it has to appear real. It has to have this sense of realism as the customer is working through it. Not 100% realism, but you can very quickly get to 90% realism. And that's the sweet spot where you're not wasting too much effort, but you are getting a lot of that realistic sense for the customer. Step number 6 is to actually test the product. This means going to a customer and giving them the product in some fashion, interviewing them about it and working with them. And the role of the interviewer is crucial in this. They give a lot of examples in the book where they're testing things like a website, and someone is sitting next to the customer while they are testing out the website. And then they've got them on a webcam actually, so that there's a bunch of people sitting in another room who can see the customer's reaction as they're going. You want to get the customer's reaction. The reactions are gold. Getting the customer to just tell you what they think or give you suggestions, that's not really that valuable. But actually seeing their reactions or seeing where they get stuck with the product, seeing if there's something that doesn't make sense to them, it's easy to say, oh, those customers are stupid. They don't know what's going on. But in fact, it's your fault. If your product doesn't work, if your product isn't clear to the customer, then that's one more thing, that's one more reaction that you want to see so that you can take something from it. It's the interviewer who's going to give this person an unbiased question. They're going to ask neutral questions. They're going to say, so what would you do next? Or what do you think about this? They're not going to say, so do you want to sign up for the product now? That's leading the customer. You don't want to do that. You want to get their actual reactions and see, does the website lead the customer to actually signing up for a subscription service or whatever the thing may be? So you want to naturally let this run its course, but ask those good, neutral questions that are going to get the reactions from the customer, the things that you can learn from. And these tests are done with only 5 customers, 5 potential customers. And this is the value of small data. The guys compare this to big data. With small data, you get something very quick. It's easy to fail fast. It's easy to see, oh man, this doesn't work at all. We got to go back to the drawing board. Or to get real human personal reactions, to see the nuances of a person and be able to go through that data very quickly. If you have statistics, well, 70% of customers clicked this thing and 40% clicked this thing and 12% clicked this thing and 50% didn't like this thing at all. Those are interesting, but it's very different and it's very hard to make sense of compared to an actual human interaction where somebody tells you, oh, I didn't know I was supposed to click on that thing. That's making a huge difference when you have that kind of human interaction. So that is the value of this small data. And step number 7 is to learn. Don't run off. It's so tempting for people to get through this big sprint of work, to really push through, and then to have all the results and say, okay, great, let's come back to this next week and we'll review the results and we'll review what the customers had to say and we'll get back into it next week. Or even worse, to say, okay, Bob, you're the interview guy, so you run the interviews and we're all going to go back to normal work on Friday while you're running the interviews. So Bob runs all the interviews, he records all of them, and then he's coding the data and he's putting together presentations and he's taking out the best highlights of customer reactions and piecing that all together for people. So that takes him, let's say he does the interviews on Friday, takes the weekend off, comes back on Monday, goes through all this stuff on Monday. Then on Tuesday, he's actually putting together a highlight reel of video of the best clips from customers' reactions. Tuesday night, he puts out a message to people looking to see when they're available. And then, oh, somebody's out of town. And before you know it, another week has gone by before people are even going over the information. That's counterproductive to this idea of failing fast and learning quickly and rapidly iterating and prototyping and doing a design sprint. So that's it in a nutshell. That's the sprint process from Sprint by Jake Knapp, John Zeratsky, and Braden Kowitz from Google Ventures. And I'll be interviewing John Zeratsky. So if you have questions about the book, questions about design sprints, design thinking, about Google Ventures, Put it down in the comments, let me know. I'll catch you next time.